Hello. So today I'm going to do a short review of the light novel A Certain Magical Index, which has been translated by Yen Press just recently. It was published on the 18th, although I have had it for a little bit longer than that, because it was just sent to me earlier for some reason. So overall, I'm just going to say that the story is absolutely amazing. I mean, it really is. The whole idea of the universe which Komachi Kazuma actually creates has been one of my favourites since I watched the anime, and after reading the light novel, it's really making me be able to get the story in a different angle and get all the information which I should have had that wasn't in the anime. Well, the main reason why I'm doing this review is to point out the things which I don't like that have been done by Yen Press, the way they've translated it and stuff like that. I mean, I haven't actually read any other books by Yen Press, so I don't know exactly how all the other translations have been done, so I didn't know what to expect, but I'm quite picky with how people translate Japanese, because if you take English dubs of anime, for example, they localize, not translate. Localize, they remove the Japanese culture, they remove things which make the whole thing seem Japanese, and I prefer it to seem Japanese than to just be like an English book. So really, I'll start off with is talking about how the narrative and the dialogue don't exactly match up with each other. I mean, it seems that Yen Press has done their utmost best to translate the dialogue exactly and keep the dialogue exactly the same. But the thing is that when they've done that, they've decided not to translate the narrative so that it matches and fits with what the dialogue says, such as the choice of words. Now, really, you get an example of this on the very first page. Now, that is quite annoying. The very first page, and they've already made a mistake. Well, not a mistake, it's just something that I don't like. So, here we got the dialogue. Kamijo is talking about how he went out to the bookstore. So, I went to a bookstore and bought a manga that obviously wasn't going to be good. Okay, but then, when you go 2 pages further forward, on page 4, at the very bottom, in the narrative, it says, that's why he went to a bookstore and bought a comic book. So, they've directly translated manga into comic book. However, the dialogue doesn't translate it at all. They kept it as manga. So I'm just saying that they probably should have kept this comic book as manga as well. I mean, if people don't understand what a manga is, then they should have added a translation note. But if you're reading something like this, you probably do know what a manga is, so why translate it to comic book? The next thing I'd just like to point out is that they've removed certain references which are fundamentally important with the translation of this book. I mean, it is part of the character of the book to use the phrase a certain something when referencing things which are unknown to the reader, unknown to the reader. So a certain high school is used because we don't know the name of the high school which Kamijo attends, and that is it's an important aspect that exact phrasing has been used, because the book is called A Certain Magical Index and the spin-off is A Certain Scientific Railgun. Things like that, and it's aggravating that they've actually not included this phrasing. A certain dormitory hasn't been used when it should have been, because if we talk about how they've been translated by the translation groups which have done it for free, they kept this a certain phrasing, which is in some way quite important to people who know what to expect. People who've watched the anime will understand why the phrasing is the way it is, and that's just not been included in this. So that's just a slight nuisance. Another thing which I'd like to point out is that generally the honorifics have been removed from names. So for example, Kamijo-san, Kamijo-chan, Kamiyan isn't there, because this is quite an important part of Japanese culture. I find it quite annoying, because the whole idea of honorifics is to show relationships between characters and stuff like that. Just putting the name or half of their nickname, because part of Kamijo's nickname, Kamiyan, is the yan bit, not just Kami. That's just annoying and unusual for that to just not be present. Yeah, and with these honorifics, I actually think that in the future translated volumes, when it comes to having Kuroko Shirai appear, they probably won't opt to use One-sama. They'll probably translate it as something stupid like Sissy, like they did in the English dub of the anime, or something else which is stupid. And or when you get to the sisters arc, they probably won't use One-sama or One-san or whatever. They just say sister, which is going to kind of detract from the actual whole point of this. Another thing is the use of words not being consistent all the way through the book. For example, on this page, it is talking about how Kamijo thinks it's a nice day, and so he'll air out his futon. So it's so nice outside that maybe I'll air out the futon today. Go to the next page, and then it's referred to as a mattress. Yes, I understand that a futon does have a mattress part to it, but describing the whole thing as mattresses is not right. Another inconsistency with dialogue and narrative is on page 17, but I don't even know why I'm referencing exact page numbers, because it's not. That would infer that these are the only issues with the book and in translation. So on this page, it's basically when Index first appears, and Kamijo is suggesting that he is doing things which is going to raise the parameters of Index, like a visual novel in a game where he's trying to impress a character or whatever by feeding her. And when he's talking about that, Index doesn't really understand what he's talking about by raising parameters and flags and etc. So it says, she didn't seem to understand Japan's geek culture, whereas further down in narrative it talks about otaku culture, which is kind of annoying. Again, I prefer it to be the Japanese instead of geek culture, because the meanings are slightly different. I'm not going to explain the difference between the meanings, but that's where a translation note probably would have been helpful for people who don't understand these things. Yeah, so they should have either, kept consistent otaku culture all the way through, or geek culture all the way through. I would have preferred the otaku culture option there. And if they added the translation note, it would have been fine. And I'll talk about translation notes later, because there are points where they should have added translation notes, but decided not to. Other points is just general options in translation. For example, here it says, I was being chased. This is the point where Index is talking about how she was being chased by some evil magicians or members of the Sorcerer's Cabal or whatever. Yeah, so it says I was being chased, whereas other translations might have said people are trying to kill me or something like that, because they're both basically what was also happening, and it's how online translations translated it, or Oxford translation. I would prefer that translation as well. Another thing which is a little bit annoying is the lack of capitalization after some punctuation marks. I've noticed that when they've translated parts of the dialogue immediately after, when it refers to who said so he said or Kamijo said or whatever, when they haven't actually used a name, when they've used a pronoun such as he, which is another thing which wouldn't actually be used in a Japanese writing, because generally they don't use that pronoun. It's more polite to refer to someone by their name rather than saying he or she, as I have been led to believe by everything I've read. So in some places, after it says he said, when referring to Kamijo or something, the he hasn't been capitalized when it should have been capitalized, or there wasn't a full stop inside the quotation marks or something like that. I mean, this is what I've just got down from my notes when I was reading it. But that isn't consistent all the way through. It's in just some points. So I think there's a lack of quality checking there. If we go further, even further through the book, there's Misaka Mikoto there, Billy Billy, favourite character by the way. When Toma first meets her, then they talk about ESP and PSY. These acronyms haven't actually been explained previously. They've always been the word Esper or psychic or whatever has been used previously. They haven't actually said what ESP means or PSY means. So people who don't know the universe of what actually happening or what the terminology is will not understand this. They should have had a translation note there, or they should have put Esper, or they should have explained it earlier, which the online translations have done. So that was quite stupid by Yen Press's part, I'd say. They haven't been explained, and so people won't understand what's being said. Either that, or I've completely missed a whole page or something where it would have been explained. So, another thing, this is probably a bit more important than what I've already said about them not saying translation notes. They've got things completely wrong here. They've translated them wrong. As we should know that there is 80% of the population of Academy City which are students. The rest of them are teachers, academics, and etc. And here it says an eighth of the city's residents are students. An eighth. Yes, that's very annoying. But however, if you go another two pages or another page across, it does say 80%. It's now become 80% somewhere on this page. I can't find it exactly. Yeah, with 80% of the entire population being students. So that is complete contradictory. People who don't understand the universe and know that it is actually 80%, not an eighth, won't know which one it is. It's 80%, like they said at the end there, which is stupid. Another issue with translation: they haven't quality checked it. There's also, if we talk about some things such as going back to the honorifics again. They've either completely removed them, or they've translated them into an English equivalent, which is not the same. So here it says, even though Miss Komoe liked being called cute, blah 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 blah, this would have been Komoe-san, or I've forgotten what her family name is, Tsukiyomi or something like that. Tsukiyomi-san. They put Miss. So Miss and first name? That's weird. And they also do it through other points, so Mr. Kamijo, Miss Index, or whatever. which is weird and unusual. Yeah, actually, there you go, Tsukuyomi. Which actually is another thing I should point out. You'll notice all the way through the book that they've actually inversed the naming convention. So they put first name, family name, whereas in the actual book it would have been family name, first name, because of course in Japan people don't go around calling each other by their first names unless they've been given permission to do so. It's just a respect thing, which is annoying because it kind of breaks up the flow of things I expect it to be. Misaka Mikoto, Kamijo Toma, not Toma Kamijo, or anything other than that. There's actually some other things. It's just a very weird translation. If you go a bit further into the book, we're talking about the part where we first meet Style, and they have their magical battle with Kentis in the dormitories, far everywhere. This is particularly talking about the runes which Style has placed all the way around the dormitory. Here it says, paper dissolves in water. Even kindergarteners knew that. That is very, very weird translation, because paper doesn't dissolve in water. Not really. It just gets messed up, which is how it should have been translated. Again, on the next page, another weird translation. It's not weak enough to be melted by a little water. Again, it doesn't melt because it's not being heated up by water, at least, which is weird because again, that should have been something like, it's not weak enough to be messed up by a little water. So I don't know why it's happened to me, and I can't believe they translated it like that. God knows what the translators put on at that point. And that is actually all I have notes for. I mean, it seems that they might have been having a few issues getting into it at the very beginning for some reason. I don't know why, but at the end I actually found it quite hard to pick out any real issues which I haven't already mentioned. Generally, it's the grammar is all right. The translation gets basically the basic point across pretty accurately, and I don't really see that many problems in terms of translation, other than the fact of the things I've already said, which are just minor nuisances. Or there's nothing catastrophically wrong with translation. I'm just saying that some people who might expect it to be more Japanese sounding, have the honorifics, etc., which I personally prefer, won't get that in this, and probably not in any other book which is translated by Yen Press. I mean, most translators don't do the things which I've asked or just said, but yeah, that's really everything that I actually have to say in this book, about this book. Although what I will do at this point is I will be posting this to Yen Press's Twitter, so hopefully if Yen Press actually do watch it, which they probably won't. I mean, they were very, very nice to have retweeted my my initial video saying that I had the book and I was going to read it, and etc. However, they decided not to retweet the fact that I said the translation was slightly iffy. Obviously, so I don't know if they'll watch this video, but I'm just going to plead to them to say maybe it might be an idea if you put the honorifics in as they were. Don't translate them, keep them as they meant to be. Don't put the names round the opposite way. So it should be Kamachi Kazuma, not Kazuma Kamachi, and it should be Haimura Kiyotaka, not the other way round. Same for everyone else. Kamijo Toma, not Toma Kamijo. Misaka Mikoto, not Mikoto Misaka. Stuff like that. But yeah, I also do not translate on-air-sama to sissy, or anything along the lines of that. Just put it in and put a translation note saying this means this is an affectionate way of addressing someone. That would be much better, and I would prefer to read it like that, because in my head I already translate that. I already know what it means. I don't need to have sister or sissy or whatever to be put in place of it. But yeah, plot absolutely amazing. I really recommend it. I probably will buy the other books because I do actually have quite a large collection of the Certain Magical Index, Certain Scientific Railgun sort of universe. I have a lot of stuff. It is my favourite anime, and hopefully will be my favourite light novel series, whether or not I read it by Yen Press or read the online translations. And I really do say that you should go out and buy it and give it a try, even if I might have put you off slightly from what I've said. There are a lot of things which you'll be able to ignore. Just read the story. It's amazing.